Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So was it from Yajuzu Bay'ul Lahm?
No, very back.
Okay, so ولا يجوز بيع الحنطة بالدقيق ده. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ولا يجوز بيع الحنطة بالدقيق ولا بالسويق. So لا يجوز بيع الحنطة. So here it's again talking about the topic, the theme of the chapter, which is excess. So there are certain things in Islam we're not allowed to sell them unless they're equal and there and then. And this is based upon some sort of hidden illa, cause, which the Hanafis have taken out as the wazn, kale, or and jins, same genus, and it's measured. If both of these are found, it has to be equal and there and then. If one of these is found, then it doesn't have to be equal, but it has to be there and then. Yeah, so we talked about that. Okay, so now continuing on with this then. So let's say, for example, like you have wheat now. So wheat is found in an ear and they have lots of wheat on it, little small little grains of wheat. So this wheat that you have, imagine someone was to sell 10 kilos of this. In exchange, there was another guy who had wheat, but he powdered the wheat, he grounded the wheat. So this guy's thinking to himself, let's say Shakil, he's thinking that Ahsan's got this powdered wheat. Instead of me doing all that, why don't I just exchange the wheat and get powder for it? Get the flour? Why don't I do that? So will that be allowed?
No.
Is it the same genus? Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Ultimately the same thing, isn't it? What do people do with wheat? They grind it anyway, the flour. So it's like you're basically buying flour. But on this side you've got flour, plus you've got the husk. Yeah, and on this side you've got pure flour. So if you sell 10 kilos for this, 10 kilos for this, okay, then you're allowed, otherwise. So وَلَا يَجُوزُ بَيْءُ الْحِنْطَةِ بِالدَّقِيقِ وَلَا بِالسَّوِيقِ. You're not allowed to sell hinta, which is wheat, in other words, inside with the husk, بالدقيق, in exchange for powder. You're absolutely not allowed to sell it. Because even if you sell 10 of this, 10 kilos of this, Shakil has 10 kilos, Ahsan has 10 kilos of flour, what's the problem? Yeah, the flour isn't the same, is it? وَلَا بِالسَّوِيقِ. Nor can you sell it for sawiq. Sawiq is basically a powder they make from wheat, like Weetabix. Yeah, in Urdu you call it sattu. Yeah, you get that, mix it with water, mix it with honey, mix it with butter, and it's a drink in the summer. It's called sawiq. So can you sell it for that powdered sawiq? So it's basically refined wheat flour. No, you can't. Same reason. كذلك, likewise, the flour for the sawiq. So on one hand you have the raw flour, and on the other hand you have refined flour which is made into sawiq. You can't. So if you want to go around this, all you have to do is sell it for cash or something else, and then use that to sell that. Everyone got that?
So you can't even do this
You can't
in
even
the
do
same quantity.
You can't, because you're not going to get the same quantity.
Right, okay.
Why would you not do that anyway?
There are some businesses, some big businesses, they might think to themselves, you know what? There's this guy and he's got all this stuff ready anyway. Let me just sell him this, buy that off him.
No, if the weight is different, it's completely unfair.
Yeah. Okay, next masala. So we've understood this concept, yeah? This concept over here is understood. The next masala is this. What about animals now? When you sell an animal, how do you sell the animal?
So, you know, animals, is it haywan, hayawani?
Haywan.
In the
Sukun.
dictionary it says hayawan.
Hayawan it means something else, it means life.
Oh, okay.
So look, so do animals come under riba? Are they weighed and measured?
No.
But especially them days, they didn't have any scales to weigh animals. Nowadays they can. In those days they couldn't. So let's say Shakil has a cow, and he has his cow, he wants to sell this cow for meat, he just wants the meat. Let's see. So can he exchange a cow for meat? Cow's meat. There's another cow,
Yeah.
it's been slaughtered, you've got the meat there ready. Can he exchange the cow for the meat?
Yeah.
What's going to be the problem?
The weight.
But is it something that's weighed?
No.
Is a cow weighed?
No.
The meat might be weighed, but cows, animals, full animals are not usually weighed. So this is why there's an ikhtilaf here. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Yusuf, taking this into consideration, they said that you don't have riba in animals because they're not things that are weighed and measured. Yeah. So وَيَجُوزُ بَيْءُ اللَّحْمِ بِالْحَيْوَانِ, you're allowed to sell meat for an animal according to Imam Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf. That's their reasoning behind it. Whereas Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, he says no. He says you're only allowed to sell it, right? Only one scenario where the amount of meat you have, the amount of meat is more than the more than the meat inside the cow. For example, like let's say the amount of meat that Ahsan has is 500 kilos. Yeah, 500 kilos of meat is got. And this cow that we got is a very big cow. The cow weighs 800 kilos. So therefore, is the meat, 500 kilos of meat, is that going to be equal to the amount of meat inside of that? Could be, could not be. So because there's a doubt, riba is still there. Riba exists when you definitely know there's riba, or when you have doubt there's riba. It's called shubhat riba.
Is this the case if the meat, let's say, is a cow, and
Yeah.
the animal is a cow as well, if they're the same
Yeah.
type of meat?
Yeah.
Or if they're different types of meat, chicken?
Then it would be different. Because the genus is not the same. Okay, so look at this. So what Imam Abu Muhammad says, the solution for this is you get the meat, let's say it's 500 kilos, and you get the animal 500 kilos. Yeah? So definitely the amount of meat inside that cow is what? Less than 500, isn't it? So let's say it's 400 kilos. And 100 kilos is the bones and skin and everything else. So what can we say? 400 for 400 equal. And then the excess 100 is going to be in exchange for the rest, the leftovers of the animal. The bones, the skull, the horns, the hide. Have you got that?
So are you weighing the animal here? When you say one animal,
Yeah.
the meat of that animal is more than the meat that...
So what's this one Imam Muhammad saying? I'm giving you in today's terms. But he would say you get some guy in, and you look at the animal, he'd be able to tell you how much meat's in it.
Oh, so just as a visual guide.
Yeah. Yeah, just like eyeballing it. So on this side you have 400, 500. So we say that 400 is equal to the 400 is meat, and the remainder for that. So therefore there's not a riba. Because riba has to be excess in it. So we do have excess here, but there's something in exchange for it. If there's something in exchange for it, there's no riba. Does that make sense? So, لا يجوز, Imam Muhammad says it's not permissible. حتى يكون اللحم, the meat, is أكثر, more than that which is in the animal. So you kind of try and estimate how much meat's in the animal. So you know you need to have more meat on this side to equal each other. And then the excess meat that's left, that's going to be in exchange for the remainder of the animal. It's called, we call this the saqt.
So Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Abu Yusuf, their opinion is you just straight exchange is fine. You don't have to.
They said no riba in there.
Okay. So you can have 500 kgs of meat in exchange for 500 kg of an animal, and it's fine.
It's totally fine.
Okay.
As much as you like. There's no riba in there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not one of the 6 things. And then the reason for those 6 things, the jins and the qadar, measured, and it doesn't come in this. Yeah. But Imam Muhammad, he seems to look at it from a different angle. He's saying because meat's the same genus, meat is meat. And because generally when people buy meat, they buy it by weight anyway. So therefore there's still the element of riba there. But the opinion taken is Imam Hanifa's opinion. فَيَكُونُ اللَّحْمُ, therefore the lahm will be بِمِثْلِهِ, 400 for 400. وَزِيَادَة, and the excess 100 kilos is going to be for
Waste.
saqat, in exchange for the saqat, the remainder. Everyone got that? Okay. Next masala. Now, look. Imagine Siraj. Siraj has rutab, fresh dates. Those moist ones, the watery ones. He's got those. He's got how much? 10 kilos he's selling. Yeah? And Imtiaz, on the other hand, has got ripe dates. Dates, the dark ones, the ones that dry up, dry ones. So dates for dates, is there going to be riba? Yeah, so how much does it have to be? Equal, isn't it? Okay. So the question here comes here is this. You know, moist dates, won't they dry up? Yeah?
Yeah, all the time.
So isn't it going to decrease? It's going to decrease, isn't it? So isn't there going to be riba there anyway? So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah's opinion is, the others differ with him. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah's opinion is that this is something which is beyond our control. So something moist, everything has moisture in there, and it's going to dry up anyway. That means you can't sell anything in reality. So he says that this is allowed because Allah doesn't burden us more than we can take, and this is how people deal. So yajuzu bay'u rutab. Rutab, moist dates, can be sold in exchange for normal dates. Mithlin bi mithlin. But you still got to observe the rules of riba, i.e. equal on both sides. An exchange has to be done there and then. Others say, no, you can't even sell these, like treat them like the other masala, the wheat and the flour, like that. They treat like that. Because they say the moist ones are always going to decrease. There is a hadith regarding this that they do take, where some companions came to the Prophet ﷺ and they had dates and they were selling it equal. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, do these dates decrease in weight? Do these dates decrease when they dry? They go, yes, because you can't sell them. But Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he basically says that maybe this hadith, there was a specific other context that we can't see. Because according to the rules, we seem to be fine. Because moisture, leaving something is something which is beyond our control.
And besides, is this like for like, as in ajwa with ajwa, or can it be different dates, but as long as it's weighed the same?
Yeah, as long as the dates are dates. Okay, next.
Sorry, can I just double check that? So you have fresh dates versus dry dates, 10 kilos for 10 kilos. The problem is that the fresh dates will dry up and decrease in weight. So what looks like an equal exchange actually in fact won't be.
It's not going to be.
Right. So Imam Abu Hanifa says, yeah, fine, because we can't avoid that.
Yeah.
But the other Saiban say you what do they say then?
So you can't do it.
You just can't do it at all.
You just have to set it for something else.
Oh, okay.
And do it that way.
But isn't this the same thing as what you're saying with those 6 things, that as long as the genus is the same and the weight, they don't have that particular.
That's what Imam Hanifa says.
That's what Abu Hanifa is saying, isn't it?
That's what he says. He's saying, look, the stronger evidence seems to indicate we're allowed to do this. It's just that one hadith that we've got. And remember, if you have a hadith and then you have on one side and on the other side of the scale you have other evidences outweighing that, you have to interpret this one rather than interpreting majority of the evidences.
So Ustad, why isn't that same logic applied to wheat? Is it because wheat was in one of the...
Yeah, because you've taken it out, hasn't it? It's been taken out.
Taken out the actual...
Yeah. It's been taken out the husk. You got the flour.
The form's changed.
Yeah. In reality, you can question lots of things. Say, okay, in dates, what if the flesh of the date is small and the seed is quite big? Yeah, then life becomes difficult. Allah doesn't burden people in Islam more than they can bear. So it wouldn't make sense why Allah would make this, like splitting hairs. Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about this. Okay, next, another one. Grapes in exchange for raisins. Is that allowed?
Yeah, different genuses. It's the same as
Same genus. Where do raisins come from? Grapes. Yeah, grapes. So on one side you have grapes, other side dates. Honey, that's fine. Because even though the grapes will dry up, that's beyond our control. So at the time of transaction, both of them are the same weight. 10 kilos of this, 10 kilos of that. Exchange on the spot. It's fine.
So that's following up on Imam Abu Hanifa's masala.
That's it. Have you got that? Okay. Next. Okay, what about this one then? Grapes for grape juice.
Like the flower,
It's be like the zaytun and the zaytun oil.
Do you be like
Follow
that?
that one.
Do you be like the olive?
Good, it's gonna come now. So look at this. Okay, if someone was to sell olives, 10 kilos of olives, and there's another guy who's already squeezed those olives and taken out the oil from there, can someone sell the oil in exchange for olives?
Not 10 to 10.
Yes or no? Why? What's the problem?
They're different, aren't they? How can you even compare the one with the... It's the same as the wheat with the flour. No, it's like the animal.
You'd be like that, no?
Yes,
You'd have to give
You
more
pay
oil.
extra for the... Say
The
the
skin.
skin in it, yeah.
You'd have to give more oil and say the excess is for the extra. maybe.
See, the husk, there was no value for husk, was there? In wheat, do people use the husk generally?
But feed
Thrown away? Yeah, it's thrown away. Doesn't have any real benefit unless you want to like mix it with something else like earth or as compost or with some food mixture, but it doesn't really benefit anything. But olives, you can benefit from it. Yeah, even the seeds, you can grow them again. So this is treated differently. So they say it's like the Imam Muhammad's meat one. So as long as you got oil on this side, enough oil on this side, which can equal the amount of rough estimate oil inside the olives, plus a bit of extra, which will be in exchange for the flesh of the olives. So وَلَا يَجُوزُ بَيْءُ الزَّيْتُونِ بِالزَّيْتِ. You are not allowed to sell zaytun in exchange for zayt. وَالسِّمْسِمْ بِالشِّيرَجِ. Simsim, sesame seeds. Simsim, sesame. Yeah, from there. You can't sell the sesame seeds in exchange for shiraj, oil basically. It's another word for the oil taken out from there. حَتَّى يَكُونَ الزَّيْت, until the zayt on Imtiaz's side is وَالشِّيرَج, and the oil inside the simsim أكثر مما في الزيت والزيتون والسمسم. So let's say for example you're selling 10 kilos of olives, therefore the oil you have to have is going to have to be more. So if you had 10 kilos of oil, would that be sufficient?
No.
If there's 10 kilos of olives here,
No.
is 10 kilos of oil going to be sufficient?
No.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Because if that's 10 kilos of olives, that
It's
means
not 10 kilos of oil.
it's not going to be 10 kilos of oil. Has to be less in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you need more
Has
oil.
to be less. So 10 kilos of oil for 10 kilos of olives is fine. Because we definitely know there's going to be more oil on this side than on this side.
So why is it saying here that wala yajuzu the first bit?
Yeah, so
It's not permissible.
so it's not allowed unless this.
So just say you can't do 10 for 9 then.
I mean, if you're in doubt, then no. If you can't estimate, I mean, usually
you don't know how much
people who are
oil
experts, they know this kind of thing. They'll know how much can come out one olive, how much can come out one kilo. They'll know that.
So I thought it's saying no for the same amount, as in weight.
Yeah, no, you know, saying this like you can't sell it unless it's like this. Like, you can't absolutely sell it at all unless this is like this.
Usman, is this to avoid somebody giving less oil for more olives? Is that
It's to avoid the concept of riba, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said you can't sell things that are the same genus because they're still the same genus in reality. Oil and olives, same thing, isn't it? Yeah. So because we're trying to avoid that this doesn't come under the hadith, this is why we're doing it. We're basically trying to avoid the strict ruling in the hadith. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out in life what are all the things where riba can occur.
Does it matter in this one that a liquid would probably be sold by measure rather than olives which would be sold by weight? So you wouldn't do 10 kilograms of
No,
oil.
olives would be sold by measure.
Right.
They would sell it by measure in them days.
In them days.
If it changes today, that's fine.
'Cause nowadays you would sell oil in liters
Yeah.
in a measure,
Yeah.
and you would sell olives by weight.
Yeah.
Would that make a difference though in the masala?
Remember we said if something was done in the time of the Prophet ﷺ in a particular way, we stick to that.
Mm.
However, Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, he says that is fine. Whatever the society decides to do, whatever the markets basically are doing, they dominate. Yeah.
But
So
you would still
if,
have riba.
yeah, but so then you would have to work out how much it would be.
Right.
So convert it.
Mm.
Okay. So في الزيتون والسمسم. Everyone understand that one? فيكون الدهن, so the oil in the olives and in the sesame is equal to the oil inside the fresh olives and fresh sesame seeds. والزيادة, and the excess in the oil is going to be in exchange for the thajira, yeah, the leftover bits. Everyone got that? Okay. Next. This is the question that you guys asked earlier on. What if you were to exchange different animal meat? So you got cow's meat, 10 kilos of cow's meat. You got 20 kilos of, chicken meat. Yeah, can you exchange that? Yeah, that's fine. Why?
Different genus.
Yeah. But obviously, if you weigh them both, then you got to do it there and then. Yeah. So, وَيَجُوزُ بَيْءُ اللُّحْمَانِ. You're allowed to sell meat. Luhman is a jama of lahm, okay? Yeah. Not its name. Because if it was tasniya, what would it have been? لحمين. بيء اللحمين. يجوز بيء اللحمان المختلفة. Different meats you're allowed to sell بعضها ببعض متفاضلا. Some in exchange for others in excess. Doesn't matter how much you sell. But if you do it in weight, if it's sold in weight, if it's sold in measure, both sides, you have to do it there and then. That's the rule. Everyone got that? Okay, next. What about animals' milk? Yeah, cow's milk, goat's milk, or even cow's milk for cow's milk. How does that work? So وَكَذَلِكَ أَلْبَانُ الْإِبِلِ وَالْبَقَرِ وَالْغَنَمِ. If it's the same, the same rules apply, riba rules. But if it's different, then what? Then it's fine. وَبَعْضُهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ مُتَفَاضِلًا. Excess is allowed. Yeah, as long as it's done there and then. Everyone got that? Okay, next. What about vinegar? Where does vinegar come from? Yeah, it comes from alcohol, isn't it? And alcohol comes from grapes and dates and other fruit. So let's say, for example, you have vinegar that's made from dry dates called daqal. Yeah, you get dry dates, you put it into water, you leave it until it becomes alcohol, then you add some salt in there, you add some other things in there, and it becomes vinegar. So on one side, Shakil is selling 10 liters of vinegar that's made from dates. On the other side, Ahsan's got 5 liters of vinegar, white wine vinegar, made from grapes. Can you sell them in different quantities, or do they have to be equal?
Different quantities.
Yeah, because they're different genus, but they have to be done there and then. Everyone understand that?
So, sir, if you're not weighing something, just say, like, if it's, you just say, oh, someone's got a bottle or something, and you don't have to do it there and then.
Yeah, if the society doesn't weigh that thing. So, for example, when you sell books, you don't sell them by weight. Yeah. But if it's something that's supposed to be sold by weight, like gold and silver should be sold by weight, but you don't. You just do it randomly. It's not allowed.
Okay, so it's the.
Yeah.
Presumably, started then, say vinegar, white wine vinegar for grapes. That's considered a different genus then.
Yeah, that would be different. Because then there's other things added to it. Yeah.
Ustad, when you talk about the meat, we said the extra is the waste. So if an animal
Not waste, not necessarily waste. You said
like the bones,
could be used. Some people use them.
yeah.
Boil them.
But what we were saying was, if an animal weighs 500 kilograms and the meat is 400, we say the extra in the animal is like the bones, so it's okay to do. Is that what we were saying, or did we say we have to have 500 kilograms of meat and 500 kilograms of animal?
No, as long as you know that there's more meat on this side than the amount of meat in the animal.
Okay. Oh, so the meat has to be okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the other maslas which are not here, which they mention, which might come a bit later on as well in Kitab al-Sarf. Yeah, Kitab al-Sarf it comes. It's basically like, let's say for example on one side, someone has a ring. This ring has a ring on there and it has a stone. If you weigh the ring and the stone together, both of them, the ring is a gold ring, both of them weigh, let's say 100 grams. Yeah, and on this side, you've only got gold. How much gold do you have to give to buy that ring?
More than the gold that's in there.
So it has to be more than the gold in there.
Yeah.
So if the amount of gold in there is 70 grams and the 30 grams is the stone, so then you would have to have more than 70. Yeah. If you have 70, it's not allowed because you're getting something in excess. Nothing in exchange for it.
Okay. So the reason why I was asking that, because for the olive oil, we said it has to be 10 kg or 10 kg for 10 kg.
No, I said to you, I just give you a question.
Okay.
Same with the animal. If the meat of the animal is 100 kg meat and the animal weighs 10 kg.
Yeah, then it's fine because there's more.
Yeah, so you definitely know, because the animal's going to have bones as well,
Yeah.
that the meat's going to be less than 100 kg.
Okay, so okay.
Okay, everyone got that? Alright, next. What about bread? Are you allowed to sell bread, roti, chapatis, whatever, bread in exchange for wheat? So let's say Siraj has got wheat, 10 kg of wheat, and on this side Imtiaz is selling bread. Can he sell that, or does it have to be equal? So يجوز بيع الخبز بالحنطة. You're allowed to sell khubz in exchange for hinta, mutafadilan, as much as you like, or khubz in exchange for daqiq, for the flour. Mutafadilan, why? Because they're two different genus now. Because it's gone through a process of cooking and everything, it's become like a totally separate thing. Yeah, if you say to someone, what's this? They're going to say bread. What's this? Flour. Two totally different things. Whereas flour and the wheat, they're the same thing really. Not much processing has taken place for it to change. Everyone understand that? Okay, last masala now. Wala riba bain al-mawl. Now look at this. Two masalas now. Number one, let's say for example like Zayd is a master and he has a slave. Slave's name is Khalid. This slave that he has, yeah, the rule in fiqh is anyone who owns a slave, everything the slave has belongs to the master. That's the rule. Every penny he has, all the clothing that he has belongs to the master. That's the rule. So let's say now that Zayd and what do you call him? Khalid. They both want to do a business transaction. They want to exchange dates for dates. And Khalid has got dates and he's got dates. Does it have to be equal between them?
No.
Why?
All the masters.
Yeah, because the money all belongs to the master. Yeah.
And is this for all types of slaves?
So this is for all types of slaves apart from Mukatab. Because Mukatab can own for himself.
But then following that through, wouldn't it be that any bay between slave and master is void because...
Yeah, because they don't sell to each other.
Yeah.
Unless it's a Mukatab. Because the Mukatab legally can own his own money. Because he has to earn a certain amount of money to pay master off.
So the issue of riba could never really arise, could it?
Yeah.
Because there's
Never
no
be-
bay between...
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, the visual kind of action of
Right,
transaction took place between them.
right.
Would it still be counted? No, it wouldn't be. Or if there were two people who are playing a game, it wouldn't take place. So la riba bain al mawla wa abdi. There is no riba between mawla and abdi. Yeah. Even for example, maybe the master, he decides this, you know what, I'm going to open a bank account for you. Right? Legally, the slave doesn't own anything, but the master wants to open a bank account for him, put money in there for him, allow him to work. He can do that. And he goes and earns, and he builds himself an account. Yeah, what happens?
He's all the masters.
In reality, it's all the masters, but maybe he just wants to, give him the opportunity to earn for himself. And the whole of his life, he lets him buy a house and a car and live his life. He's still the master. See how it works? So the whole concept of slavery in Islam is different from this concept of slavery in the West. Yeah, it was more like dictatorship there. Over here, it's just like someone extension of your family. Everyone got that? Okay, and last must like this now. The rules of riba, is this something which is international? Or does it only occur in a Muslim country, between Muslims? Does it apply, let's say you were dealing with a non-Muslim. So let's say on this side there was John sitting here, and you want to send 10 kilos of dates in exchange for 20 kilos of dates. Would it be allowed between him because he's a non-Muslim? Yeah. So this brings up two questions. So those two questions are that non-Muslims, are they bound by our laws or not? Yeah, so non-Muslim, is he bound by the laws of Islam or not? So according to the scholars, there's a difference of opinion. Some of the scholars, they say, yes, he is bound by the laws. However, he won't be punished for it in the dunya. This is something which in the day of judgment, Allah will deal with. So what's the reason for that? Because like Imam Shafi says, because in the Quran Allah says that it's going to be the person going to Jahannam is going to be asked, what put you in Jahannam? Ma salakkum fi saqar? He said, Lam nakum minal muslimin. We never used to pray, and we never used to feed the poor. Even though he's a disbeliever, it's going to be said to him, what did put you in Jahannam? We never used to pray. So them not praying, they're going to be punished for. Yeah, so this is why I say that. However, according to Hanafis, there's two positions. One is the similar position to the Shafis. That's one group of Hanafis, the Iraqi Hanafis. But the other Hanafis, who are the ones towards Afghanistan, the north, yeah, they want the opinion. They say, look, when it comes to the only thing they are really responsible for is accepting Islam. If Islam reaches them, they have to accept Islam. And if they don't, they'll be punished for it. Legally, in a legal society, in courts, they'll only be responsible for mu'amalat. Dealings between other human beings, they're going to be responsible for that. And when it comes to ibadat, wudu, salat, zakat, all they're not responsible. Have you got that? Why? Because the prerequisite of these actions being accepted is what? Faith. They don't have faith, then these other things are futile. Right? So it comes to mu'amalat. Mu'amalat means transaction, buying, selling. And even in that, they have to uphold the laws which the Muslims, when they're dealing with a Muslim, they uphold the laws that the Muslims have to uphold. But when they're dealing with each other, then there's leniency there. They can buy and sell pork from each other, buy and sell alcohol from each other. Yeah, that's allowed for them. And they can marry, the laws of marriage, as long as their faith allows it, they can marry and do whatever they like.
Is that even if it's a Muslim country?
This is in a Muslim country.
Okay.
In a Muslim country, they have to do their own things. They have full freedom of religion. They can have that, unless it's something which is going to harm. That's why they can have their own courts. Yeah, the Islamic government recognizes their courts and will allow them to, do their rulings as they like. And this is what happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Jews, they had their own courts, but the Islamic courts also allow them to raise their cases to the Islamic courts. And if they raise it to the Islamic courts, they'll process it according to how they process it with the Muslims. It'll be according to the Islamic way. Everyone understand that? So the question now comes, the second thing now is this, is when we talk about dealings between Muslim and non-Muslim, non-Muslims are divided into two categories. This is in the olden days, because when the people migrated from Mecca, right, these people that were left in Mecca, the non-Muslims, these are people who were hostile towards Islam. They were known as Harbis. So Harbis literally means someone who is at war. So these were people hostile towards the Muslims. And their land was known as Darul Harb, land of hostility towards Muslims. It doesn't mean that it's always hostile, but it's just known as being a place which is hostile, i.e. the penal code of Islam, the laws of Islam are not implemented there. So any land where the penal code, the Muslims' penal code, is not implemented, you call it Darul Harb. So technically, based on that definition, this country is Darul Harb. India is Darul Harb. Yeah, most of the countries around the world would come under Darul Harb because they don't implement the penal code according to the way it's supposed to implement it. Okay. Now, as time went by, scholars began to look at this concept and they said that this division of countries into two categories, there's nothing like clear cut from the time of the Prophet ﷺ that it's dealt with this way. There are certain evidences that indicate towards this, but as time used to go by, now what used to happen was that countries began to change the way, the demographics of the country, the structure of the country began to change. Now we have something which is known as a democracy, whereas before it was, the leader was an autocrat, and now we have a system where that there's not one person making all the choices; it's like a group decision that's made. Yeah, that's the difference, and that nowadays countries have borders. Before they didn't, and nowadays you have something called citizenship, where you affiliate yourself towards a specific nationality. In the past, you didn't. Does that make sense? So, this is why scholars that came later on, they began to redefine these terms and said that now we have countries which are Islamic countries, even though they don't, apply all the rules of fiqh. They don't apply all the rules of fiqh, right? Like, for example, Pakistan, hand is not cut if a thief steals. Yeah, but still, they still apply understanding as an Islamic country. So therefore now, scholars are beginning to say that those countries of Turkey, Pakistan, these countries, they are come under the Islamic countries now. Yeah, and those countries where there's no hostility towards Muslims, Muslims can live there freely, Muslims can practice their religion freely, then these countries are now not necessarily Darul Harb. These come under the term Darus Salam, yeah, or Darul Aman, the place of peace, Salam and Aman. Does that make sense? However, let's keep it with the definition of Darul Harb. So the non-Muslim is then divided into two types. So one living in Darul Harb, he is called a Harbi, and there's one who is living in Muslim lands, who is called a Musta'min. Musta'min is someone who's taken a legal permission to live in that country, like a visa. Non-Muslim. Non-Muslim comes to a Muslim lands, and then he lives there, right? So he pays a certain tax, which is known as the jizya, and this is upon only the men. Women don't pay. Yeah, people who are disabled don't pay. Basically, anyone that can fight in a war, they pay. So children don't pay, women don't pay it, the disabled don't pay it, slaves don't pay it.
So
Monks.
this is non-Muslims in Muslim lands. Now
Yeah.
we're talking about. There's two types.
So this is the type, second type.
Right. And
But-
the first type, sorry, I missed that. The first type.
The Harbi
Harbi,
living.
okay.
So Harbi living in the Darul Harb, and the Muslim living in the Muslim lands. This is called a Musta'min. This guy has the rights as any Muslim. No one can touch him, no one can rob him, no one can threaten him. He can go to the authorities and complain, and he'll get the same rights as you. Everyone understand that? This is known as the Dhimmi. This person is known as Dhimmi. The Musta'min is also known as a Dhimmi. And scholars have written chapters and books on the laws of the Dhimma. Everyone understand that? Okay, now, if a Harbi, for example, comes into a Muslim land, sneaks in, and doesn't get any permission from anyone, doesn't get any sort of like protection, it's called protection in them days. Yeah, Aman, doesn't get any Aman, and on the street he's killed, for example, let's say he's robbed and killed. The difference now is that if this happened to a Dhimmi, Musta'min, the government would intervene and the culprits would be caught and be prosecuted. But this guy's been killed, no one's been prosecuted. Because there was no sort of law that was protecting him.
Basically, illegal immigrant.
Like illegal immigrant, yeah. Illegal immigrant. And the olden days, any country you went to, you had to get in contact with someone, your guarantor, security, who would give you protection. Nowadays, you have the concept of visa. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and you have to understand, like, these kind of laws, Islamically, there are some laws which are not against the state, crimes that are not against the state. But in this country, there are many crimes. Any sort of crime that a person does, divided into those crimes against people, which people can prosecute you for, and those crimes against the state. Like murder in this country is against the state. Whereas in an Islamic country, murder is not against the state. Murder is against the individual. If they want to prosecute you, they can prosecute. If they want to forgive you, they can forgive you.
Well, I guess for Harbi, they can't.
Yeah, because there's no rule
Yeah.
like governing him.
Because I guess they could be like an informant or someone sneaking into.
Could be anyone. Does that make sense?
So this last masla that says here that the Muslim and the Harbi they can actually deal.
Yeah.
Does it
So
really apply to us
then
because-
everyone understand those maslas, yeah? Okay. Now, so the rule is this: a Muslim is not allowed to do any riba dealing, any haram riba dealing with another Muslim. Number one. Number two, a Muslim is not allowed to do any haram riba dealing with a dhimmi living in a Muslim country. Yeah, can't do it. Third, can a Muslim do a riba dealing with a harbi who has come into a Muslim lands illegally? Can he do it in the Muslim lands? No, he can't. Still can't. Number four, what about a Muslim in his land? Here where there's a difference of opinion. According to most of the scholars, Malikis, Shafis, even Imam Abu Yusuf, they say because the texts are quite clear about riba, that riba is totally haram. That means whether you're in an Islamic country or non-Islamic country, it is haram. Just like alcohol is haram, whether you're in an Islamic country, non-Islamic country, it's haram. Not allowed. So this is why they say this masla doesn't apply. They don't apply. However, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he looks at it in a different way. He says, what's the underlying reason for why riba has been made haram?
It's unfair.
Yeah, it's injustice. Yeah, you're transgressing against another person in their wealth, where you're charging them a fee for something that you don't deserve. Yeah, money delayed payment, right? I want a fee. So this is not allowed. Yeah, and people should be protected. There should be a law that protects them from this. So Islam presents this law. However, if you're in Darul Harb, because their wealth, there's no laws, Islamic laws that are protecting their wealth. Therefore, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says, technically you're not oppressing them as long as they give their consent to trade with you. Doesn't matter how much you take of them, as long as they were happy to give you, it's allowed. Yeah. So in other words, if a Muslim was to go to a non-Muslim land and open a bank and start giving out money to non-Muslims and charging a fee for it, no money, it's fine.
But it has to be
Because there is no law that is protecting their wealth. The law of transgression, as long as you're not cheated, don't cheat them. You're not allowed to. If you cheat them, rob them, you're not allowed.
Doesn't it say you have to be in a Darul Harb though?
Yeah, Darul Harb.
Like an oppressive land.
So as I said to you, according to the old definition of Darul Harb, this is Darul Harb. India is Darul Harb.
But they're not oppressing you though.
It doesn't matter oppressing. It was the term, his definition. That's what it was. A land in which the penal code is not applied.
Can we follow that opinion today?
So this comes to the other thing now. So this Imam Hanifa's opinion, some have even taken to the extent that even the bait fasid, all the bait fasid that we've done, even that's allowed in this country without any dislike. Because the whole point of bait fasid being prohibited is because you're taking the rights of someone else, where there's a law that's protecting them. So you're allowed to do a bait fasid according to some of the later Hanafis because of the same reason. Yeah, but it's only between a Muslim and non-Muslim. Remember that. Have you got that? So Imam Abu Yusuf's opinion is taken by the most of the Hanafis. They say because then this concept over here in nowadays terms, it's very difficult to apply. Yeah, because nowadays banks, you're not just dealing with a Muslim. There's non-Muslims there and non-Muslims. And businesses are not just localized, now they're international businesses. So this whole concept of Darul Harb, like I was saying to you, this whole concept of Darul Harb now is disappearing. Does that make sense? So now there are some people I know who give fatwa and say things like, you're allowed to do a riba transaction where you actually borrow people money, non-Muslims, and you take an interest as well, fee for that, based on what Imam Hanifa says, and they look at it very strictly. Yeah, as land is divided in two types, and even in India they say you can do it, as long as you know you're only dealing with non-Muslims, and if they consent, they're happy to deal with that. But with Muslims, you're not allowed to because there's a law governing them. But the Imam Abu Yusuf's opinion, it's the better opinion, it's the more safer opinion, because otherwise, once a person gets into the habit of doing this with non-Muslims, then it's very difficult to discriminate between Muslim and non-Muslim. But everyone understand how this works? Yeah, so this is why I said, La bayn al-Muslim wal-harbi fi dar al-harb. This is Imam Hanifa's position. Although the texts mention it, the other scholars, they say that this position is not the position which they've given the fatwa.
So, sorry, going by this, what Abu Hanifa's, the way he's looked at it, that you're taking advantage of someone, so that's why it's not allowed, etc. If you're in another country, then are you kind of taking advantage of someone who's kind of put the effort in and squeezed the oil out? So there's like effort gone into
So
it.
Imam Hanifa says all these laws of riba do not apply in non-Muslim lands.
But I'm saying from that sort of angle where you're taking advantage of someone, can someone not say you're taking advantage of someone who's actually put in the effort, squeeze the...
Yeah, so that's fine. So you have to sell it for something else.
Okay.
Yeah, so get your stuff, sell it for some cash, get that cash buy for that. Does that make sense? Jee, any other question?